Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has been in development for 5 years and will feature a historic number of playable characters, or at least it was going to before they deleted that text. What is going on here? We now know so much more than we did about a week ago when we reacted to the initial Dragon Ball Sparking Zero trailer, and that's mostly thanks to trailer breakdowns, the official websites, and even an IGN interview with the game's producer. From gameplay mechanics to how big is this roster, let's go over everything we know about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero so far. And I think we should actually start with the developer, which we now know is Spike Chunsoft. This is the one thing that is holding me back in terms of hype, because after J-Stars, Jump Force, and One Punch Man, it's hard to not be cautious. And yes, Spike did develop the Tenkaichi games back in the day, but they are a very different company from what they were before. That said, thanks to IGN, we now know that the game has been in development for 5 years. That's already an extra year compared to what Jump Force got, which we estimate got around 4 years of development time in total. The thing is, we're still counting for Sparking Zero. It doesn't have a release date yet and could very well be far in the future, giving the game a total of 6 or maybe even 7 years of development time. And it is awesome to see anime games getting more and more time to develop themselves. Ultimately, that's going to lead to better games in the future, because oh boy, I remember when these games had 1 year to be made, 2 if they were lucky. And 5 years of development, that means they have been developing this before even Jump Force came out. That means they were working on Sparking Zero during the entire development and release of One Punch Man: A Hero Nobody Knows, which honestly is not surprising given what they put out. However, I will say that development time isn't everything. We can find developer builds for Naruto Storm Connections on Steam from back in January 2019, meaning Storm Connections got at least 4 years and 10 months of development, and you still cannot invite friends to play online. I'm sure we won't have the same problem here, but something that is pretty much confirmed at this point is that split screen local multiplayer will not be returning. They haven't spelled it out yet, but if you look at the US website, you can see that it's single player offline and multiplayer is only online. The Steam page also says single player and online PvP, so for as much as split screen is a staple of Tenkaichi, it's just not a staple of modern gaming, and so Bandai is opting to not have it at all. That means if you're gonna have a friend over, you cannot fight against them on the same platform, which is gonna make offline tournaments a bit tricky for this, if we ever do them, of course, but that's something that we'll have to figure out with Jujutsu Kaisen very soon. So by the time we get to Sparking Zero, we'll know what to do. With that said, the biggest selling point for this game is arguably the roster. That's what Tenkaichi is known for, the most impressive Dragon Ball roster of all time. Tenkaichi 3 had 161 characters, transformations included, so how big will be the roster for Sparking Zero? Well, last week fans were losing their minds because the website said it would have an historic number of playable characters. That's a really strong quote. However, after that initial reaction, the text was actually changed and now reads an impressive number of playable characters. And that has made me a little bit paranoid. There are 100 different reasons why the text could have been changed, but it almost felt like a reaction to how fans received these news. No matter how you look at it, from historic to impressive, it sounds like they downgraded their text. Like they're trying to keep expectations low, like they were scared of how fans reacted to
historic numbers.
Then I heard the Spanish website actually said this was the biggest roster in Tenkaichi history. Fortunately, I can read Spanish, and that's not the case at all. It just says, learn to master several playable characters. It's not even an impressive roster anymore. French also says incredible, that's incroyable right there. According to a couple of friends of mine, the German website also says incredible. The Italian website says a vast cast of characters. So it wasn't until I found the Brazilian website that I finally found them spilling the beans. We're getting 404 playable characters, baby! Okay, no jokes, there is actually hope, and that's on the Japanese website. This bit of text says 3D battle action featuring the largest character roster in the series. That's the Shonen Games translation at the very least, but that is still up on the Japanese website to this day. So what is happening here? Why is the European website downgrading their text while the Japanese site clearly says this is the biggest roster in the series? And so to clarify this, I reached out to my Bandai Namco source, and they said, let me just pull it up. Who are you? Please get out of my house. I will call the cops. Help. So that didn't really answer my question. Now, I have zero doubts that this game will have the biggest roster a Tenkaichi game has ever seen. The question is, do we have that roster at launch, or is that a post-DLC thing? For now, it's just wait and see. All we can do is keep breathing in the hopium. If anything, the number of characters they announced on this first trailer alone is pretty impressive and a very good sign that the roster will be huge. For one trailer alone, we already have 20 characters announced. I'm including transformations, of course, because these often change the character's movesets, so I think they should be counted as separate characters, or at least they used to in previous Tenkaichi. We'll see how this one works. Special highlight to Bergamo and Mr. Satan being announced, showing how far they're willing to go. Really letting you know that everyone is here. And I've said it during the reaction, but from this trailer alone, it really looks like the focus will be on Dragon Ball Super. Dropping the Z from the title of the game is the first big sign, and looking at the roster, it's 99% Dragon Ball Super, which is not to say there won't be other time periods from Dragon Ball represented. I mean, we have Cell already confirmed, and we saw Trunks from Dragon Ball Z, so that time period is definitely featured in the game. I just think there will be a bigger focus on Dragon Ball Super, which is why it makes sense for characters like Bergamo to make it in. In fact, DBS Hype also said on Twitter that according to his source, this game will have original Dragon Ball characters all the way to the newest Dragon Ball Daima that's airing next year, going through Dragon Ball GT as well. Now, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. I respect and trust DBS Hype, that's why I'm even mentioning this at all. But at the end of the day, it is a rumor from an unconfirmed source, and also it doesn't say anywhere if this is at launch or if this is gonna be DLC launched in the future. At this point, we just don't know. The message seems kind of mixed right now, overall. The EU website downgrading the text, but Japan just saying, yeah, it's the biggest one ever. And then Bandai being kind of quiet and secretive about this. I don't know. Maybe they just weren't fans of me breaking and entering, but I'm optimistic. More than I was last week, for sure. With that said, let's talk gameplay, because even though the trailer has a lot of cuts, it was showing us actual gameplay, and we can see some old systems returning, as well as new ones at play. Starting with super attacks, just like in Tenkaichi, some attacks are going to be instant, where they go into a cutscene like Vegeta right here, and others will happen in real time, like Goku's Kamehameha. As you can see, this one doesn't go into a cutscene at all, you just charge it in real time. In Tenkaichi, cinematic supers are usually a lot more powerful, because you don't have to wait for a long animation to shoot it out. Time freezes while you're in the animation, which means your super comes out faster. Meaning that's already a pretty bad sign for base Goku. Low tier confirmed, but it does look like Super Saiyan Blue transformation is gonna give him a cinematic Kamehameha. This does seem like a higher level of animation though, so I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being his meteor attack, his ultimate, instead of just a regular super. And speaking of supers, beam clashes are back. Or are they? There's a little hint that these two beams are gonna clash during the trailer, but it immediately cuts out, so we're left to wonder. Is this just a cinematic moment, like a cutscene in the story mode, or are we actually getting beam clashes again? The website does seem to say so in this text right here, with breathtaking visuals and authentic combat moves like beam clashes. This doesn't outright confirm a beam clash system, but I think it would be very misleading of them if something like this wasn't in the game. So I think we can assume it's in the game for now, and if it's not, we can get
very, very angry.
I do hope it's not the old school spin the stick system, you know, you have to rotate the sticks like this. Every single creator I've seen on this platform has said the exact same thing, and I share their opinion. Controllers are expensive now, and they have enough stick drifting problems as it is without us putting the extra stress of just rotating the sticks as hard as we can. If anything, I would definitely prefer a mashing option or something else. If they're clever about it, I'm definitely welcoming to anything that doesn't ruin my controller. For as much as I enjoyed beam clashes as a kid, playing Tenkaichi 3 for 2 hours straight against another player would actually hurt my arm because of the mashing. It physically hurt. And if it wasn't hurting you, you just weren't mashing hard enough. Regardless, beam clashes are simply a must-have. Fans would riot if they were not in the game. And with the trailer plus the website, I think we can be confident that they're going to be adding those. And as a final note that we learned from the trailer and the IGN interview has to do with environmental destruction. Maybe this isn't as much about gameplay and it's more about the visuals, but they seem to be going way beyond what I expected with destruction. I think this is a big part of what's giving this game that incredible look that everyone loved when they saw this trailer. Because you have destruction like this where Vegeta knocks Goku into a rock formation and the rock breaks. This is the kind of stuff that I expected, that we already had in previous Tenkaichi games. It just looks a lot better now because Unreal Engine 5. But going beyond that stuff, it's almost like everything you do affects the environment, which gives all of your moves a really powerful sense. Goku's Kamehameha here, for instance. Even though he is floating really far away from the ground, you can see rocks flying because of the beam. And even better, when Vegeta deflects the Kamehameha, look at the ground before and after the beam is deflected. The way you can affect the stage with so many different moves from a considerable distance too is giving this game a sense of power that we just never had before. And in my opinion, it's a big reason why the overall look of this game works so well. And that's before we even talk about the big stage change. Frieza throwing his super into Namek and then playing on destroyed Namek afterwards. We don't see the full transition, but this severely hints at stage transitions during an actual match. You're playing in Namek in 1 minute and the next you're playing on destroyed Namek, and that's always cool. But that is is also everything that we know about Sparking Zero so far. If I had to guess, I would say that we're gonna get something new in January at the Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour. But until then, that's gonna be all we know, and everything we learn in the future, you can count on me to cover it right here on the channel. And if you'd like to see the initial trailer reaction and breakdown, make sure to check this video right here. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.